Dinakar, the prop trading group you once ran at Goldman Sachs produced some of the biggest and most successful hedge fund managers in history. What was so special about Goldman?
I think what was fantastic about it was that it was a culture where we hired smart, thoughtful people, and they focused on making money, and it was a really collaborative discussion. Let me give you an example of that. Early 1990s, I joined the group. At that time, it was very focused on merger arbitrage. First three things I worked on were merger arbitrations that all broke. We lost money on all three of them. I assumed I was going to get kicked out and head off to grad school or something like that, because that job wasn't going to last very long. Instead, the person running at that time, I think, both Erik Schatzker and Frank Rosen's runs a firm called Taconic now, exceptional leader, basically pulled me aside and said, "Look, first two deals I worked on broke too. Don't worry about it. I think you analyzed it the right way, and so I don't see any problem with the analysis you did. Sometimes you can make a good bet, but it's a bad outcome. If you keep losing money, then we'll think about it again. But for now, go at it because we think you're doing a good job." And that message was coming from Bob Rubin all the way down. And so, look, I think what we had at Goldman was very special because it wasn't a large number of people, but it was a culture where you didn't worry about marketing or second guessing. If something went wrong or there was a crisis, you would go and discuss with the smartest other people in the firm and pick their brains, and they'd poke at you and ask you tough questions. But it wasn't about a presentation. It wasn't like, gosh, how do I put a PowerPoint together to go and explain what's happening and put a marketing deck together? It was, hey guys, we're in the middle of an Asia crisis. I'm looking at bank stocks. I think they're cheap. Any advice for me? What do you think, right? And I think that to me was really exceptional. That is more challenging. That type of culture is really challenging to create in an independent model. And that was, to me, the biggest difference, right? Because when you have many outside investors, they rightly, of course, care deeply about their money, and you care about it for them too. I mean, I would take it personally every time I felt as if I hadn't done a good job for my investors. I mean, it's painful. These are great people with hard-earned capital, right? And in some ways, that pressure almost starts making you do the wrong thing because you worry too much about letting people down in a given moment or how it will look, and not enough about the problem itself, right? When you're focusing less on the stock itself and more about how it's going to look based on your monthly return sheet or your quarterly deck, you just start ending up having your portfolio fit your marketing deck as opposed to the other way around. And so, look, from my perspective, that Goldman culture is really very special. And I don't know that we'll ever see again an environment where you can have such an incredibly talented set of people and a firm around them that was willing to go and be thoughtful about taking risks. And look, this is pre-partnership days, right? I mean, I guess I was the last class of pre-IPO partner. It was a very special world back then. Goldman Sachs is still a great firm, but it's a different firm. And obviously, with the crisis and everything else, proprietary trading isn't what it was at banks. But to really have that type of business embedded in a firm was incredible. And also remember back then, the hedge fund business was just starting. You had, the Soroses and things like that, but there weren't a lot of typical hedge funds really out there. They're all small and growing. Much of the biggest capital was actually at other proprietary firms, right? Salomon Brothers, Prudential Beige, et cetera. Goldman, these are all the big arbitrageurs and proprietary traders in the market. Obviously, that world is very different right now.
The Goldman Sachs you worked at was a very different place. What do you think of the Goldman of today?
Look, I think it's an exceptional firm. It's just obviously it's a different one. It is interesting because last year I was at the firm for 14 years, and as I mentioned, became partner in '98 after being there 7-8 years, et cetera, and left in '04. And I noted that actually last year was the first time I'd been away from Goldman more than I'd been at Goldman before, right? I mean, because I joined straight out of college and worked there 14 years in a row. Look, I think Wall Street has changed. I mean, obviously the amount of, when it comes to things like risk and other things, the amount of money in external alternative hands is really extraordinary, right? And in 1990, that just didn't exist. If you added up all the private equity money in 1990, it would have been a fraction, even relative to the market of what it was today. Hedge fund money would have been a fraction, tiny, compared to anything else. Back then, typical stock and bond trading was really what drove the sales and trading business, and then mergers and equity offerings, right? I mean, it was a pretty simple business model. And obviously over the years, everything has gotten more complicated. And I think as a result, the firms are much, much, much bigger. And look, I'm sure that at Goldman Sachs, it's the same journey that it would be for something else. As all the firms have gotten bigger, you need to find people that are exceptional people managers. And there's more and more delegation than there is actual driving of things. But look, I think Goldman is still, to me, I think, exceptional place. When I talk to my kids' friends who are in college now about where they'd want to work, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. I mean, there are a few names that pop up, but Goldman still is right at the top of the list.